All right. Welcome, everyone. People are joining us from all parts of the country, and we are just super, super grateful that you are making time to be with us today. Today, we're going to have a really important conversation and presentation for all of our partner colleges. And we just want to thank those that are here with us today and have joined the scholar advisors and the primary relationship managers. We know we have some folks that work with mental health and their students. And we also know that we have some of the leadership general counsels as well from the colleges and universities. And so we just want to say welcome to our monthly Power Hour. And our PC Power Hour is usually hosted by Chris, and Chris is here. But today I wanted to start by just centering ourselves and talking about what we are going to be doing post the election. So we feel that the Dream.Us has always been, since the beginning, a place where we wanted to work with colleges, universities across the United States for the mission and the purpose that all of you are where you're at, to provide education and to provide an avenue where individuals can realize their dreams and be able to get the education to be able to be in their careers and be, people in our community who are doing good and well. And historically, we know that colleges and universities have played such a crucial role in advancing justice for women, for immigrants, for people of color. They have been the center of education and ensuring that as a society, we have the ability to bring the changes that we want to see and then also educate not just the teachers and nurses and engineers and entrepreneurs, but also be a place where dialogue and conversation is at the center of it. So we call these factories, education factories and dream factories. And so we just wanted to say thank you for that. Today, we're going to have just a little bit of conversation in each of these buckets, but I wanted to say one thank you and say that the only way, right, we don't know what's going to happen, but what we have heard is that there will be some challenges ahead of us. The population of people that we support and that we have been educating together for the last, some of us, 10, 11 years, and some of you have been doing this for way longer, are vulnerable. And we also know that this population of folks there are certain things that we can do to support them. And we want to make sure that you know that we are here to support you. And the last thing I want to say is that we're going to see a lot of different things, bills that try to take away in-state tuition. We know that in Texas, for example, that was passed. But I also want to say that last year, that was something that we saw, and that we were able to have really great conversation, not only with the Commissioner of Education, the Secretary of Education, the leadership, right, of the folks, and in a super Republican majority led state, we were able to band together, work together, and convince fellow Republicans to please, right, keep this in-state tuition bill. So I do believe that that's possible. I do believe that our story and the story of our students is powerful. And at the end of the day, we know that ensuring that people have the ability to get an education is something that will benefit us all. So I will stop there and turn it over to Chris so that he could introduce the next speaker and our agenda for today.
Hi everyone. So I don't want to waste any time introducing the next speaker. He's someone who has worked with us for many years now. It's been amazing working with our scholars and the undocumented students on a national level. And so I want to introduce Dan Berger. And Dan, please let us know what we can be doing to support our scholars at this point in time.
Yeah, well, thank you, and thanks to TheDream.Us for putting this together. It's really important to be to be talking at this time. I guess a few big picture things, and you may know this, but I really wanted to echo what Gabby was saying, that we don't know exactly what's going to happen. We can guess, but we certainly don't know what will happen when. So I think I'm not happy about where we are, but in some ways we're more ready than we were in 2017 as a community. I'm working with local organizations to really dusting up and updating action plans rather than creating them from scratch. And the higher ed community is really in a very similar situation. I've been working with colleges and universities and undocumented students for decades, and for a long time, it was hard to have some of these conversations openly. But what we saw, as a lot of you know, if you were in the field during the Trump administration, is the first Trump administration, is that colleges and universities were really on the front lines in litigation and in partnering with with states that were challenging various actions like the Muslim ban. And we're ready. I just want you to know. I can give you some guesses of things that might happen, but on the other hand, I just want you to know that when things happen that we don't like, we will get the word out as quickly as we can. And for you all, I hope that's the message to try to give back to campus. I was on a campus last night just talking to students, and um, they need to know that you can help provide them with information. There's going to be a lot of rumor, there's going to be a lot of stuff on social media, but we will work together with all the national organizations, with ACE and NACUA and AAU and Dream.Us and the President's Alliance and everybody to get information out as things happen. And then you can share that with your students, and then they'll know that they're getting good information, and we'll suggest ways to respond. I a couple other things that I think are really important before I get into some specifics about what might happen. I'm really glad that the way this was set up was a lawyer and a mental health professional, because I found those are the best that's the best strategy. I can tell you when I talk about uncertainty, and Cheryl can speak to this. I, I've heard from mental health professionals that continued uncertainty can be in some ways almost worse emotionally than bad news, because with bad news you can plan. With continued uncertainty, it's harder to plan. And so I can pretty much guarantee you that we will go through the next 4 years not knowing what's going to come next and being surprised by orders. I imagine most of what they're going to do in the first few weeks has already been drafted. We just don't know what it is, but um, we're never going to know exactly what's going to come around the corner. And that's really hard. It is really hard for people, especially young people, who want to be planning their lives, and we're not going to be able to tell them exactly what's going to happen. And I think we just need to reassure them that we're here. We've done it before. We will get them information. We will figure out the best way to move through these things. Um, in terms of specifics of action items that you can take now, again, we can't respond to specific Trump actions because they haven't happened yet. But here's what you can do, and a lot of you are doing it already. Number one is to try to have a point person on campus who is following all these things, all the immigration updates, supporting these students. And that person is going to be a problem solver. And you need to get the word out all over campus um, that this is the person to talk to. We don't need everybody to understand everything, but we need everybody to know who to call. It's a little bit like when most campuses have a protocol. If somebody with a badge shows up, you call a certain person who actually knows what to do and knows what a warrant looks like. It's going to be the same here. I think you want to have a point person. You want to empower that person to be able to reach out to leadership, and you want that person to be a problem solver. So who knows what will happen? I mean, maybe one of your students will be on the softball team, and you've got a game coming up that's near the Canadian border. Is that safe to do? Again, nobody needs to know everything, but that softball coach should know to call the point person on campus, and that person will call us or somehow figure out what the right answer, what the right advice is. So having a point person is key, and keeping that person updated. Um, Number two is legal services. There are, I think we want, I know we've worked with Dream.Us, but you really want everybody to have talked to a lawyer or a legal service agency. And as just one, you may have your own connections on campus. This is a link, sort of a default link of accredited free nonprofit legal services where you can search by zip code. I would say try to make a connection to either a law firm that's going to give you some pro bono work in your town, or a local nonprofit legal service agency, or maybe if you happen to be in a school that has a law school, schmooze with them. But you're going to want to try to do two things. One is to have screenings for students. Some of them have shorter long-term options that they don't know about. And that's one of the big things we're trying to do. Many of them have not had access to good legal services in the past. Um, so to screen them, try to plant some seeds for the future, but also um, to to be ready. If something does happen, if there's a bad policy or some kind of enforcement action, you want to have a lawyer or a nonprofit or somebody who knows that person, who's already gone through a screening, who knows their history, and who can just react to the new situation without starting from scratch, trying to figure out their story. And sometimes the story for undocumented or DACA students is complicated. Sometimes they don't remember because they were 4 years old when they came here, and that initial screening may involve going back to parents and grandparents and uncles and getting details. And let's do that now. Um, another um, let's see. Another suggestion is to try, and this is something that we've been working on, to try to think about employer sponsorship in the future. Most wonderful immigration nonprofits that are working with DACA or undocumented individuals really focus on family and humanitarian categories. And immigration is a game of categories. If we're trying to help people, we want to think about everything. So I would say, try to help people be in the best position possible to be able to look for employer sponsorship when they graduate. And what does that mean? So let's say, and let's say you have somebody who's, a second year student. Um, that person, historically might go to the career office and say, I'm undocumented, and they might scratch their head and not quite know what to do with that person. But if your career office and your alumni office and your faculty are helping that person do unpaid internships, do network, do informational interviews with alums, then you're increasing the chance of having an employer afterwards possibly be able to sponsor them. We've had some very good success with this year under the Biden administration. Things may be harder, but even if you're planting a seed for, you know, after 2028, you're still doing a good thing, and spending years networking and getting to know things is good. It is harder, it's just harder for undocumented and DACA students to just apply online. I'm a computer science major. I apply online to a job at Amazon. If they have 20 really good applicants and 10 are US citizens, it is easier to hire the US citizens. So think about trying to help people network, even though sometimes undocumented students think it doesn't matter. It does matter. It may open up doors in the future. Um, in terms of what we might see, I think it's important, just broad stroke. We should expect the tone to be different. I think during the previous Trump administration, we did see immigration officers being less friendly. They're kind of unleashed to let, for the ones who are rude, that they were not reprimanded for being rude in many cases. So I think the tone at airports, at consulates, at interviews is going to be worse. And everybody just needs to be aware of that. I think the other thing is that things may slow down. I think that's one thing that the Trump administration did last time. They didn't update contracts with contractors. They didn't update software. They have various ways of gumming up the works, and everything may take longer, which means it's even more important for people to file whatever they're filing as early as they can. Um, We do expect more questions every time you file something. That was part of the president's previous extreme vetting order. Just officers were graded on how many questions they asked before they approved something. So we should expect that and help people realize that that's the way it is. And then but we should also understand that the president can't change the law. The president can slow down processes. The president can change the tone of what's happening, but only Congress can change the law. And even in this Congress, getting everybody to agree on anything is going to be hard. So the categories we have, the types of visas we have, the green cards we have all been pretty much set since 1965, and we're going to keep using them, and we're going to keep using the courts to support you as much as possible. All right. I think, I'm sure there are going to be lots of questions. So I think maybe Gabby or Chris, I'll turn it back to you after those initial remarks, and we'll keep going.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Dan, for that preview. And so we do want to get to folks' questions. If you want to voice a question, if you could just raise your hand so that we can keep some kind of order and just sort of keep note of who has a question. And then you can unmute yourself and ask Dan your question directly. So we will open up the floor for that now. Feel free to, again, sort of just let us know what your question might be. Yes, Cynthia.
Hi, everyone. Hi, Dan.
Hi, Cynthia.
Our space was trying to get started on kind of advertising the D3 waivers for DACA recipients who are currently working in the CUNY system and in RF CUNY. And we were working with kind of legal spaces like CUNY Citizenship Now, and then the pro bono lawyers that they have access to. And then kind of post-election, I received a message of like them kind of noting that the probability of getting an interview appointment and returning through the D3 waiver before January 20th is now very slim. Additionally, given the short time frame, the likelihood of us educating, mobilizing, and motivating travel won't be easy. And so they are kind of pivoting to prioritize advanced parole for folks rather than the D3 waivers. And so I meant to kind of send this to you in an email when I received this, but I'm like, oh, so you're here, I'll just ask you here. But I think I'm curious, what is the sense of moving forward with like the D3 waivers that are being advertised, and like, yeah, what does that look like?
Yeah. So maybe let me just take, it's a great question. Let me just take a step back just to make sure everybody knows what we're talking about. So we're talking about the fact that in June, President Biden issued an order basically saying that they're going to make D3 waivers faster. Now, let me explain what a D3 waiver is. Many people with DACA or who are fully undocumented have built up unlawful presence. And unlawful presence basically means days in the US without any kind of permission like DACA over the age of 18. So if you have somebody who got DACA under age 18, they don't need that waiver, and that moving them into status is somewhat easier. But if you have somebody who got DACA at 18 and a half or over, or had a big gap between DACA approvals, or is just fully undocumented, that person has accrued unlawful presence. And to move on to an employer-sponsored visa, the person needs to leave. And when they leave the US to process that visa abroad, they've then triggered unlawful presence penalties. And that normally means being stuck abroad for 3 or 10 years. There is a waiver for that. That's called the D3 waiver. It's a great thing. We've used it for years. We're doing, for people who've started, we're trying to do as many of these as we can before January 20th. We don't know. I mean, I think it is probably too late to start fresh with somebody to try to get let's say an H-1B visa approved, have it sent to a US consulate, have somebody get advanced parole to travel, book a visa appointment, and then come back and be safely in the US by January 20th. And I think it is good advice to everybody should be back here by January 20th to see what happens. But um, I don't think, Cynthia, that it's a bad idea to be, again, to be planting those seeds. We don't know what things are going to be like after January 20th. I have talked to some people at the State Department who are hoping, and let's keep it to ourselves so we don't jinx anything, but they are hoping that this will continue. And it, even if the D3 waiver goes back to what it was before Biden, it was just slow. So it meant being stuck outside the US for months, or maybe even a year. I did have somebody who was ready to do that. It's not right for everybody, but if I'm graduating with a degree and I'm fully undocumented and I can spend months abroad and move into status, that's something that they should know about. So I wouldn't stop sharing information. I wouldn't stop doing screenings, but I think unless somebody has already started the process as of today, it's too late to try to begin from scratch and get somebody back. If any of you have anybody who's thinking of traveling for a D3 waiver before January 20th, let me know so we can try to flag that and mentor them and try to see if we can get it done. So a D3 waiver allows somebody who's DACA or undocumented to move on to a working visa. So they're in status. If they were out of status, if they were undocumented, they can now work. And if they were DACA, they now don't have to worry about what might happen to DACA in the future with the Supreme Court or the new president. And that's great. The advanced parole that Cynthia was mentioning is a travel document that you could get from DACA. Um, Definitely try it before January 20th. But just to be really clear, it only helps people who came in without a visa. So people who came without, across the border without a visa, so who don't have a lawful entry and who might marry a US citizen in the future. That's really the only situation in which it's helpful. So if somebody's already in a long-term relationship with somebody who's undocumented, the advanced parole becomes less important. If somebody came in with a visa, then they don't need advanced parole right now. So that's the big picture. But we're going to keep watching this. I'm not giving up on the D3 waiver. I just think it may get harder. And I'll just say one more thing. The Biden administration was really clever on this one. And again, let's keep it to ourselves. But what they did when instead of saying, "Hey, this is a pathway for dreamers," what they said was, this is that cases for somebody who graduated from a US college who have a job in their field in the US should be prioritized. So, they're not talking about dreamers or immigration or anything. They're just saying, hey, let's try to take advantage of people who are educated here. And that may, I hope, knock on wood, help this fly under the radar a little bit.
Just wanted to add there, Dan, that Cynthia and anybody else, if you have somebody on your campus that is working and is a former Dream.Us scholar, so they're an alumni, we have resources to help with some of this, including working with Dan, but also traveling and supporting people with that. So please let us know, because we do have some grants that we receive to support our alumni and scholars.
Yeah, and Gabby, sorry, I'm just going to step in. I had queued this up because I figured it would come up, but this was a brief that the American Council on Education that we did with them at the beginning of the first Trump administration. I think it's still relevant about DACA and Sanctuary Campus and other issues. But I just needed to get that out of the way to share my email address that I'll put in the chat here. And to answer the question in the chat, the D3 is a waiver. It basically waives unlawful presence. It's very much in the weeds stuff. The bottom line is the D3 is a process for people who are dreamers to leave the US and come back with a working visa and be in status.
Thank you, Dan. Just a quick follow-up for both of you. But Gabby, when you say you can help Dream.Us scholars that are kind of considering doing either advanced parole or the D3 waiver, is it only alumni or current Dream.Us scholars?
So for the D3 waiver, it's anybody that is working on a college campus, university. So it can be an alumni. Most of them will be alumni, but it can also be a scholar. The thing about the scholars that they need to have already the degree. So that's where, we just need to work
I
on
meant
that.
to access the funding.
Yes, so it is for those that are working on campus. So they're alumni. We have support for them.
Okay, not current scholars that are interested in doing advanced parole before January 20th.
Yes, we at this moment don't, yeah, we're taking mostly alumni, and I would, if people have the ability to do expedited emergency advance parole, I would tell them to do it. And I know that people's comfort are a little bit different. I would say that probably if they cannot travel and be back in the United States by the first kind of week of January, if I was them, I wouldn't, go out there just because we don't necessarily know. And one of the things that Dan mentioned, right, it's just people's attitude and some of the officers' attitudes may change. So I think the possibility in the window to travel in advance pro is it's closing up. And so I also don't want to create false promises or false expectations for people that this is going to be a possibility.
Yeah, thank you. I don't mean to monopolize the conversation because we're working with international, like study abroad services at CUNY, because they're allowing students to still enroll in study abroad, and then CUNY Citizenship Now is helping us expedite the advanced parole. But students are struggling with accessing the funds. So I think that's where I was just curious if funding is provided to current students, but it doesn't sound like it. Dan, a quick follow-up to what you said with regards to the D3 waiver. So I can definitely let folks know, like starting fresh, it's a little too late, it seems, but it's good to still plant the seeds and inform folks that this is an existing resource that maybe folks can utilize. We'll see how they can utilize it after January 20th. If someone am I correct in thinking someone with DACA who has already done advanced parole, so they already have kind of like a valid point of entry, they don't need to return to like their country to like address the time in which they've been here without proper status. They can just begin the they can just begin the D3 waiver process.
Yeah, so that's actually a common misconception. So I'm really glad you asked that. The advanced parole travel really is only helpful in family categories. It doesn't help at all. It doesn't make any difference for employment-based categories. The person would still need to leave. So so again, if somebody did not have a lawful entry originally and now gets a lawful entry through advanced parole, that makes a marriage to a U.S. citizen much easier. And if they have a 21-year-old U.S. citizen child, then it also makes that easier if you happen to have any, adult students.
Got it. Thank you.
Yeah. Chris, maybe I'll do the Puerto Rico question and then we can move on. Okay. So I would be nervous about so Puerto Rico is part of the U.S. obviously, but because it's an island, there are often immigration checks coming back just to see who got to the island and is trying to come into the continental U.S. So in general, I would say if somebody has DACA or TPS or something, and they really do have permission to be in the U.S. and they can document that. I think it's probably okay to go to Puerto Rico, but I know that some schools have tried to use Puerto Rico as a study abroad location for undocumented students. I think that's not a good idea. That's not safe, in my opinion. Some people have done it, but I would not go to Puerto Rico for somebody who is undocumented because there's a risk of coming back. If you're trying to do study abroad, we can think creatively. That we're a very diverse country. If you spend time on a Native American reservation or somewhere else to have a cross-cultural experience, that's great, but unfortunately, don't go to Puerto Rico.
Thank you so much for that, Dan. So I'm gonna, just in the interest of time, I'm gonna start shifting over to Cheryl, who's someone I've been actually trying to work with for some time now. So I'm so super glad that she is able to join us for this session. I will be sharing my screen now and jumping right into the mental health portion of the presentation. And so Cheryl, I will hand it off to you.
Thank you, Chris. And, thank you, Dan, for being here and hearing you talk about all the legal aspects of where we are today with this election. Just really reminded me as a mental health therapist and social worker how crucial it is going to be for us to collaborate with immigration and legal experts that know what to do really well in terms of the legal aspect of it. And we know how to do our work in terms of mental health really well as well. So, and something that is really comforting as I see over 200 people in this call is knowing already how much care and support there is to many of the immigrant students that we work with that are going to need the care and support that we'll provide. And some of the things that I'm going to share today may already be something that you are doing. So kudos if you're already doing this. And I also wanted to add some ideas as to what you can add to your repertoire of strategies and interventions to supporting immigrant students. We know that students right now are really stressed out. I think in general, being a student is really stressed out. It's a really stressful situation, and what's happening politically and what's happening externally in their environments adds to that. Last week, we had a call with hundreds of students that are part of the scholarship fund, TheDream.Us, and they were able to express how they were feeling, from anxiety to sadness to stress to all kinds of emotions. We know that stress can impact concentration, their focus, their motivation, and overall well-being. So this is a time as colleges and universities and anybody who's in a supporting role to really be proactive and show up to students, reach out before things become a crisis, before things become really hard. I'm also a professor at Westfield State University, and one of the things that I did as a professor was to reach out to my students to let them know that whatever's happening politically, that I understand that can impact how they're showing up in school. This is a time that part of being proactive may be evaluating how we may do things like grading and some of the processes that we have in place. This is a time where potentially as colleges and universities, we may have more flexibility, or we may be able to provide more flexibility, such as assignment accommodations or more time, or what we learned to do during the pandemic, compassionate grading, because we know our students are not all focused right now as they're grappling and processing and transitioning in this moment. I asked one of my colleagues permission to share a picture that she posted from her office, Professor Maura Ringel at Lehigh University. She posted this sign, "No human being is illegal," in her door. This was her way to let students know that they're safe and she sees them. And this is a really creative way to allow people to join her. So this is a time to welcome, to create and foster a welcome environment, showing our students that they're valued and that they're safe. And this includes messages within your social media when you're able to, the messages that we post around campus, the statements that we may send out. Students are paying attention to how much they can trust us, to how much they can share with us. And so everything that we do that is visual, that is visible to them, is going to be really important in terms of them feeling seen, heard, and understood. This is also a time where students may become more nervous about their immigration status. In times where they might have felt really empowered to share, they may be more cautious to share. And if you're a counselor, a professor, a therapist, or in a helping role, refrain from asking students about their immigration status. They will share this information once they feel safe and once they feel ready. But we do know that immigrants or any of the marginalized communities, or the communities that have been under attack under the Trump presidency, we can generalize that there's a level of stress and overwhelm that they may be experiencing. So I think what's important is that we create that safe space for students to eventually open up when they're ready about what they're experiencing. Something that since 2016, where Trump got elected for the first time, is that we created support groups called Emociones y Políticas, Emotions and Politics, to be able to normalize people's experiences about being anxious, sad, depressed, and stressed out. So this is a perfect time. I know that you, as counselors or mental health providers, you may get a lot of calls for services either in your universities or if you're out in the community, and we may not have enough services. So this is a perfect time to be creative and start support groups if you don't have it, or expand support groups, whether it is we do anything between an 8 to 12 session support group under our Emotions and Politics model. We also do one time or a few sessions healing circles, supporting students to have peer support groups in their campus. So if there's funds, if there's financial support that you can provide for them to have like snacks, or for them to have space, or just the resources they need to get together and talk. One of the things that we know about trauma and we know about stressful times is that when we're together in community, we can feel stronger and we can heal together and heal sooner. So creating those supportive spaces is going to be really key in the weeks, months, and years to come. Sometimes students may not want to talk about their experiences, or they may not be able to because it's really overwhelming to, Dan, you mentioned anxiety. And one of the things I tell people is that anxiety grows out of not knowing. And as Dan was mentioning, there's so much that we don't know and so much that we're not going to know. And it's going to be really key to provide students the support to and the tools for them to identify the things that they do have control over, talking to legal advisors, connecting with TheDream.Us, talking to a counselor, making a plan if need be. So that's going to be really key. But for those students who may not be able to talk about things, but may need a place to externalize how they're feeling, this is a good time to start extracurricular activities or wellness activities that may feel non-threatening, like art-based interventions where they may be able to express through art how they're feeling. Some of the key diagnoses to look for, and we can go to the next slide, that we are seeing already and we have seen before, is a sense of grief and loss, severe stress, depression, anxiety, reactivation of trauma or post-traumatic stress disorder. What we're experiencing now is very familiar to what we experienced in 2016, and also other traumatic experiences. So not only will students experience the distress from that present moment, but any experiences from the past can be reactivated in this moment. We also see things like challenges with self-esteem, challenges with self-worth, and a lot of identity-like challenges, and what students sometimes vocalize imposter syndrome. Who am I? Do I belong here? And that kind of reckoning of who we are. If this happens to us as a private practice, the Hope Center for Wellness, we're here based in DC. We want to serve everyone in the community, and sometimes we don't have enough services, but it's really key for us and for anybody in a helping profession that we provide a warm handoff as much as possible. So if we're going to refer students out into the community, we should really do the homework to know who we're referring students out. Do they have the training and do they have the competency to be able to support the students in the areas that we believe they need support in? And having a referral list handy is going to be really key, but not just handing out a contact. This is how we lose students or individuals from actually connecting to therapy, when we just give them a phone number for them to call, and then they realize that that person doesn't have availability. So as much as possible, doing a little bit of extra homework so we can actually do a warm handoff. And we know that if we're connecting a student to an outside source, that they are going to be able to see them. I think in times like this, we have to really kind of explore and challenge what being person-centered and trauma-informed means. And it's really key that we meet students wherever they're at in their journey. Sorry, so I got distracted by a comment. I'll answer that question as soon as I can. So what does being person-centered and trauma-informed means in this moment? I already have clients who are saying, maybe I want to self-deport. Maybe I'll leave before they deport me. And that's a very important decision that someone has to make, but it's also, so being person-centered may mean that we support that person in their determination to make the best decision for the life. But we also know that at this moment, being trauma-informed means that at this moment, people are really highly activated and are very, their emotional part of the brain has been fully activated as well. So really helping clients understand the decisions they're making based on emotions or based on what they're feeling in this moment. So I think right now being trauma-informed is really key, and being person-centered is also key, but we need to balance between the activation and between what clients think they want in this moment, and helping them kind of flush out their feelings and processing so they can make more informed decisions. So that recommendation is helping students navigate their decisions, but being really cautious about what's being made based on fears and emotions. Next slide. Okay. So if you have the capacity, and if you don't have the capacity, we're happy to help you build the capacity to create support groups in your group is going to be essential. So support groups in this moment provide the kind of twinship the students need to feel mirrored and seen by one another, by other people who are experiencing the same situation. There's so much power in groups, whether they're clinical groups, whether they are support groups, whether they are skill building group, whatever group. There's so much healing that comes from having others that are like us, that are experiencing a similar situation, and they can mirror in a similar way what we're experiencing. So a model that we developed with our emotions and politics module is, it can be anywhere between 8 to 12 sessions, but some of the components that actually came from community members themselves on what they needed and wanted in this group was having a component for psychoeducation, providing information about why we're feeling like we're feeling, providing information about stress and anxiety and how that shows up in our body, how that impacts our decisions, our emotions, our behaviors, providing information about trauma, providing information about emotions, and that helps kind of normalize that experience. Many of my clients in 2016, I remember distinctly, they will call me and say, I feel crazy. I feel like I'm acting in a way that I don't recognize myself. So it was really important that the clients understood that they're not crazy, that they're having a normal response to something that feels really abnormal in this moment, and that is really abnormal. Groups should include, when possible, a place to process emotions, having students or clients verbalize how they're feeling, and having a response from the facilitator, but also a response from one another that includes validation, understanding that what they're feeling is valid, having someone be able to reflect what they're hearing. So doing reflective listening, mirroring, and having a relational approach. I think right now it's important that as allies, as supporters, that we show up in louder and bigger ways that how the other side shows up. In support groups, this is a great opportunity to provide skill building support. So things like mindfulness, things like how do we reframe our thoughts in this moment, things like deactivating our stress response. We're seeing a lot of fight and flight response in this moment. So coming back to our breath, coming back to our body. What are the tangible things that we can do in this moment to come back to the present moment? So it doesn't mean that if they're engaged in counseling or mental health therapy that we're not going to go deep and we're not going to support when we're able to, when we have the time, and when they have the time to be in therapy as well. But our students also need like quick strategies to be able to come back to the present moment so they can complete their semester, so they can complete their education. Something that is really key in this moment is to remind students and from a strength-based perspective about what their strength and their positive qualities and their inner abilities are. In moments of stress, when we're anxious, when we're overwhelmed, when we're sad, when we're angry, we forget when our livelihoods are threatened, when our futures are threatened, we forget about the things that we have overcome. And I have a stress assessment, and you can Google a stress assessment. I'm happy to also send that as a follow-up. having students recognize and identify the things that are within them. No matter who's in office, no matter what happens, there's certain things that are within us that we're going to be able to carry with us no matter what. So reminding students of that. And in this group, then you will continue to foster a sense of safety, empowerment, and having a piece that includes know your rights, connecting students to local resources, and having information analysis. We're gonna be doing a train the trainer training comes January. It's an intensive training between 11 and 5 p.m. Eastern time on January 8th and 10th. So if you're interested, we'll share the link for you to sign up. And I'll just share in the next slide some resources that I thought may be helpful. You'll get all of these links. There's 3 mental health directory that we vetted that include therapists who are well-versed in working with immigrants and students, the immigrant community and students. So we included them. There's others, but these are some that we feel really connected with. There's also some free trainings that are at our disposal, with the latest one being in the Center on Immigration and Child Welfare. So all of that you'll have access to. And in the next slide, you'll see my contact information. I'm happy to be a resource and supporter in the work that you do. We have on our website, we have a resources section for the community, where we have grounding toolkits and a whole bunch of other tools for individuals who are experiencing mental health challenges or stress or any type of overwhelm. So feel free to reach out and make use of these resources. Chris?
Thank you so much for that, Cheryl. Before I jump into the additional immigration resources, I just want to sort of just thank you so much for sort of outlining this. I think one of the things that hit most, I mean, I think everything you said was amazing, but I think one of the things that really hit home for me the most was this really proactive approach, right? Because I think for our students specifically, this is something that is very difficult for them in seeking mental health services, and really knowing who they can trust, who is knowledgeable about the circumstances that they face. And so without those really proactive approaches and letting students know and scholars know and just any undocumented person on your campus know that these resources are available to them and that they have folks that they can rely to and sort of have that open space, um, they're going to be really reluctant in reaching out to get those services. So I think that proactive approach really sets the tone for opening that space for folks to be more engaged in these types of sessions. And without it, you're going to have a lot of resistance in folks being sort of comfortable doing so, right? So I think for me, that was one of the most, important things that you mentioned, but all of the resources, everything that you mentioned was amazing. Thank you so much for that. Moving forward, because we are sort of running short on time, and I want to make sure we're able to hit on everything. We wanted to provide some additional immigration resources. If you've missed it, President's Alliance has been doing some press releases and some webinar sessions. Immediately following the election, they did put out a press release really talking about their steadfast commitment, not just them, but Immigrants Rising, TheDream.Us, and many other organizations in support of non-citizen students in the higher ed space and really providing them resources and just the services that they need. I highly recommend folks to check out that press release. In addition to the press release, there are tons of resources. Specifically, there is one on the 5 things campuses can do in support of their non-citizen students and employees. So you definitely want to take a good look at that piece. And in addition to that, there are some other resources on know your rights trainings and how to put together some of those support services on your campus for your non-citizen students, from undocumented to refugee to international students, just a wide gamut of different statuses that you might be able to and interested in supporting on your campus. In addition to that, last week, if you missed it, there was also a webinar where Gabby and other members of President's Alliance presented on what us what we can be doing now in support of our non-citizen students. It was a great session. There was a lot of information that was shared. So you will be able to have the link here as well to that session if you were unable to attend. It was recorded and you can click on the link to view that session in its entirety, as well as all of the resources that were shared. And there were so many from community-based organization resources. There's some analysis on the Project 2025, as well as what campuses can be doing. And there's tons of resources there that we invite folks to really connect with. As has been sort of mentioning, this is going to be, it takes a village, right? And so we need to really sort of make sure that we are working all together and utilizing the resources available to through all of our organizations in support of our scholars. This is going to be an ongoing conversation. We will be vigilant in what is to come. As has been mentioned, there are going to be things that we just don't know yet. But we want you all to make sure that you understand that we are here, we are remaining vigilant, we are going to be also supporting you and your success in working with our scholars and your undocumented students on campus, right? So we will continue these conversations to come, either through rapid responses or through these individual sessions that we hold every month to make sure that you have the tools and the resources you need to really react and support our scholars on your campuses. A quick note, we will have our last immigration Q&A session this Thursday. Again, this will be an ongoing conversation, but for this specific session, this will be our last session. And we have a new attorney that will be working with us, but she is amazing. We've already had conversations with her. Her name is Annette Janet Hernandez Anderson. And she is the director for pro bono programs at Americans for American Justice. So she is actually going to be conducting a session for the first 15 minutes of the presentation on what our students, scholars, and alum can be doing to prep for what may come ahead, right? In addition to that sort of prep session, she will also be answering scholars and alumni's direct questions in a Q&A format for the remaining 30 minutes of that session. While this session is really scholar and alumni facing, we open the invitation to our partner colleges to come in to hear what the presentation is, but also to hear what scholars are concerned about, what types of questions they're asking, so that you can also be sort of in the loop and in the know of all of their questions and also the responses from a expert immigration attorney. So feel free to join that session as well. Again, it is going to be this Thursday at 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And so just to reiterate again, right, like this is going to be an ongoing conversation. We will continue to provide you resources on this as things develop and responses to policies that may come up that will be concerning to your students. But in addition to that, the work must continue, right? Like we still have a scholarship program here. Scholars still need to go to school, they go to class and get everything else done, right? So we will also be continuing to support those additional actions that need to take place. And so that'll transition into our application round that is currently in full launch. One of the things that I always remember Gabby saying is that every version or application of the DREAM Act that has ever come through has always had a college component to it. And so, we want to continue to encourage students to apply for the scholarship program to explore a college degree, not only to reach their dreams, but also as a pathway that may open up some issues in the future, right? So last month we did our promotional round for the application round, and we heard you. A lot of folks were asking about QR codes to get direct access to the applications. So we've implemented that. That is all on our website now. The promotional toolkits have been updated. All of this information is available on our website and also linked on this presentation. We have also sent out the promotional materials, started going out last week. You can click on the link to get the tracking info for your specific package. You should be receiving it within this week or the next, but you will have the tracking information linked here. In addition to these two items, we want to let everyone know that we have some promotional events being conducted from our staff. So in December, we will be doing a virtual college fair for the Opportunity Scholarship, where potential scholars can come in, ask questions about their process, and get all of their questions answered regarding the application period. And on December 19th, we will be doing the same kind of session. It will be more Q&A for our national scholarship round. This will be driven by TheDream.Us. So again, potential scholars will be able to ask their questions directly to our staff. But as always, we also encourage PCs to join and engage and just sort of, or just be informed regarding these sessions. And now I will pass it on to Elena.
Thanks, Chris. So as Chris mentioned, the work does still go on. So right now we are full force in the application round. As a quick reminder, the opportunity application does close first, and it closes on January 31st at 11:59 p.m. Pacific time. And then the National Scholarship Round will close on February 28th, also at 11:59 p.m. Pacific time. If you do have anyone who's a prospective applicant and they have created their account through ISTS and it didn't actually link them directly to the application for some reason, we have the program keys listed here. So for the opportunity program, they would just click, say, add an application. It'll ask for the program key. They would type in Dream Opportunity, all as one word. If that's the one that they're applying to. For national, it's just the word dream. And then that will drop them into the application again, if it didn't automatically direct them to the application. And then just a reminder, your applicant reports are live and you can begin reviewing those now. So you would just sign into the ISTS portal. You'll click on the applicant report. Make sure you have, well, you need your username and password in order to access the site, but in order to access the report, you will need your report key. So make sure you have all three ready as you get ready to log in. If you want to track the application statuses of anyone that has started an application, listed your partner college as their partner college of choice, they will populate into your application or into your report. And you can see the status of their application in column O. It'll let you know if they have not submitted it, if they have submitted it and complete. And the slide here gives you a little bit of information around what each of those statuses mean. And since the report, the information you are seeing in the report is all based on questions that they are answering in their application, if there is any missing information, it just means they have not answered that question yet. Once they have fully answered everything, all the information for all of the column headers that you see will be populated. But just a reminder, you don't have to wait until we get closer to the deadline to begin reaching out to your applicants. You can begin reaching out now, encouraging them to not only complete our application, but also assist them with completing their admissions application to your school. So that's just kind of my spiel for the day. And I think, Chris, it's back over to you.
Awesome, thank you. So I want to just give a quick preview of next PC's Power Hour, and then we'll open it up to any questions, because I know that we are sort of at the hour right now, but do want to make sure that we can answer any of those. So for December, as we mentioned, we will be vigilant in what is going on between now and then, and providing additional supporting resources for service senior undocumented students on campus post-election. So we will continue those discussions, but we also, again, the work continues. So we will also be hopefully having some information on paid internship and fellowship opportunities through a national organization that we've been talking with. So again, based on what is happening at the moment, we want you to bear with us. This is a tentative agenda, and we may need to be a little bit flexible in terms of what is happening at the moment and providing you the resources and information that you need. But these are the elements that we are tackling for next month's PC Power Hour. With that, I will stop and again, just open up the floor for any last minute questions or concerns. We are at the hour, so if you do need to leave, feel free to do so. Thank you so much for joining us. Thank you so much for everything that you do in support of our scholars and your undocumented students on campus. But I will stick around, and maybe a couple of us will stick around if you do have any questions or anything that you would like to discuss further.
I did see
Chris,
one question from Brandon.
Yeah, I just want to quickly, I know some people are leaving. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Great. I just wanted to say and acknowledge that things are going to undoubtedly be hard and our roles will be challenged, but we have the privilege of being the steady presence for these young people. So let's be the anchors that they can rely on as they navigate their journeys towards higher education. And I just want to say that I feel so grateful that we get to do this work alongside all of you. And I know, right, that if we band together, we stand together, we're going to be able to go through whatever and be that steady presence that our students need. So thank you so much.
Thank you so
Chris, I have a separate question. The students have been requesting for that tab that was retried. Remember, we have several students who have pending payments from spring 2024, fall 2023. We send them names and they said they're gonna review if they can get the money for the scholarship because tab Jose Peralta was retried. Is any information about that? I didn't get any response until now. The students, they emailed me. If let me know later in an email, but I've taken the opportunity to drop the question because I'm getting a lot of emails from the students. They cannot register until now.
Gabriela, do your students have the TheDream.Us marker on their account that would prevent the hold from being placed?
No, because the reason is tab Jose Peralta retry money. For example, a student registered as full-time, drop a class last semester. That's already penalty there.
Gabriela, why don't you guys work on that so that we can move on to the next question, please? Since it's
Yeah,
very
no problem.
specific.
It's only, please, keep in mind that because registrations are pending.
Thank you so much, Gabriela. We will email you offline on that.
Hello.
Hi.
Hello. This is Alejandra. I got here like 10 minutes late, and the lawyer was talking about advanced parole. And I started preparing the class to take students abroad on May, and hoping that everything was going okay. And I started last May, and the class is going to be in May. And I was taking at least 2 or 3 students with advanced parole email, of 25. So based on what I heard, the suggestion is that I don't even try,
Gabby, do you wanna tackle that one?
Yeah. So what I would say is that it really is on the level of comfort of people that you could submit it and advanced parole might be continuing. We don't really know, right? We're assuming that one of the things that they will try to terminate is the ability for people to travel on advanced parole. The issue is really the individual will lose out on the $630 that they have to pay to be able to submit that application. If they're okay with that, then I would say go for it. But and I think there's enough time to see, right, the temperature, and they can make the decision closer to that time to see if they feel comfortable traveling or not. But it really is just, will they be okay with losing the $630, and we'll, in the next couple of months, right after January 20th, seeing and finding out what the temperature is politically.
Yeah, the only thing is that one of the lawyers that talked to us as a group said that probably takes like 7 months to get it. I don't know if,
Yeah, right now
so
it's
it's
taking about
like
4
if we
months.
wait until February, we don't have enough time until May
That's right. Yeah, it's taking about 4 months, but this is
to
for
do
the
it.
current
So,
administration.
okay,
And
I will,
everybody's right now applying for advance parole. So I would say that's right. It will take, if you apply today, it would be 4 to 7 months to get that approved.
okay, yeah, so the intentions were there, but okay, we'll see what happens after. Thank you very much.
I want to go back and answer Brandon's question real quick that he had earlier, where he asked about whether partner colleges needed to join or just join for the virtual college fair, or whether, you know, they needed to join like as the partner college and that information. The virtual college fair is specifically for our opportunity partner colleges, which is our 5 partner colleges for our scholars or our potential applicants who live in locked out states where they're not going to be able to attend a partner college in their state. So they are moving out of state to go to one of these 5 partner colleges. And we're working specifically with those partner colleges because they'll have a presentation to actually present during the virtual college fair. And then they'll have breakout sessions where they're able to ask, to go into the like virtual rooms and ask their questions to those specific folks at those campuses. For the National Scholarship, it's just a Q&A session. There's not anything highlighted specifically to individual partner colleges in the national one. I hope that helps answer that question.
Any other questions?
Hi, I have a quick question, not necessarily related to the scholarship round, but just kind of resources generally. I'm trying to get approval from leadership to put a working group together to create kind of resources and supports for students for the incoming administration. And I was curious if y'all had a toolkit or a resource on policies that we should be reviewing or looking at within our institution. I know there's been conversations and like the success convening WhatsApp chat, but curious if there's like a central resource where we can kind of, you know, start reviewing some of our policies that for better or worse may negatively impact our students, or how we can bolster ones to support our students, if that makes sense.
Yeah, so I think there's a lot of resources that have been shared again through President's Alliance, through the mental health services stuff that Cheryl has sent, stuff that Dan has sent. So I think what we will be doing is collecting all of these resources, and we'll be creating a drive specifically for this session, and where we will be able to put all of those resources into some type of depository for folks to access. And again, that link will be shared with everyone in the PC Weekly tomorrow. And we might be able to use that as an ongoing depository. So as more resources become available, as more information becomes available, we can continue to add resources to that folder so that everyone already has it in hand.
Okay, thank you so much.
Any other questions? All right, so I think if there aren't any more questions, we can close out. Again, we are always here for you guys. I'm always here. My email's in the chat. You guys should have my email, but if anything comes up, if you need anything, always feel free to reach out to me, and we can connect and really figure out how we can support you and the students as well. Ciao.